Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone to the council meeting. First item on the agenda is our minutes from our last meeting. Those minutes were circulated in advance. There was one small correction to those minutes, and those were again circulated. Are there any further changes? Seeing none, we can consider the minutes approved. We'll now have the finance report for September.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in your council packet was the finance report for September 2021. It is a summary of the UAN report that was also included in your packet. We talk typically about the general fund. So on the revenue side, the earnings tax is the focus of our discussion this evening. For the month of September, the village collected $244,000 in earnings tax. Year to date, we have collected $2.5 million, and that is about 86% of what we had estimated we would collect in 2021. So our estimate for the year is $3 million, and we believe we will far exceed the $3 million. But year to date, we've collected $2.5 million as of the end of September. The village does receive property tax during the month of September. We did not receive any of that. Those allocations are made through the county, and we receive those about 2 to 4 times a year. On the local government fund side, we did receive $6,300, bringing us up to a total of $55,000 is what we anticipate for 2021. So we're inching our way towards that number. The total revenue for the month of September was $316,000, and our estimate of how much revenue we will collect during 2021 is $5.1 million. So we have collected year to date about $4.8 million, so we're about a 93% collection rate at this point for revenue for the village. On the expense side of the equation, our expenses during the month of September, $481,000. We have spent $3.9 million thus far, and that represents about 68% of the budget. Our budget is set at $5.7 million, so we've spent 68% of the budget so far. We ended the month of September with an unencumbered general fund balance of $6.6 million, and that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the manager? Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the recognition of council members that are leaving. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the recognition first, and then afterwards, each of the council members can then have a chance to say what they would like to in rebuttal or whatever. And we'll do that in the same order. So, Councilwoman Kamine, if you'll join me down here. Councilwoman Kamine has served on council for almost 6 years and has been very instrumental. She has chaired the comp and benefits, and I have to say that is one of the most challenging things, because every year at March time, when we are considering what we want to do with employees, it's this difficult balancing act. We all would like to give as much as we can to our excellent employees, but we also have to balance that with what the village can afford. And Elida's done an excellent job helping council manage that delicate balance. She's also served on the Health Education and Welfare Committee, the Land Development Committee, and the Law Committee. The one thing I would say is, ever since Elida has joined council, she is very thoughtful on any issue that is considered. And it's really helped me, and I think it's helped other council members, because she's really brought a different perspective. She has made us think about things, and we don't always agree, and that's okay, but she does create that additional thought. When Elida came to me 3 months ago or whatever and said she was not going to run, I was very disappointed. But the one thing she said, and I'm very hopeful on this, is she said she's going to stay involved. And she's going to sort out what that is. And I know your dad remembers other people that have remained and been involved. She did threaten that she was going to be the new Al Lane. I really do thank you for everything you've done on the council.
Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you. What's it? Yeah, here. Thank you. I'm so nice. It's really, really nice. Thank you. Can I have you?
Choose one side of the podium or the other.
What?
Choose one side of the podium or the other.
Okay. Councilman Warren has served on council for 10 years. We actually joined council at the same time 10 years ago. Councilman Warren has, I still remember this to this day, I think it was the first council meeting first or second council meeting, what Councilman Warren said was, it's okay to disagree, but don't be disagreeable. And I think that is one of the things that has stuck with me for my entire time, and I think it has served our council very well, that simple phrase. Ray chaired the Streets Committee over the last, I think, 6 years or so, and I think one of the things that will be your legacy is this current streets program. Ray was very fundamental in leading us through development of this 8-year streets plan. And we're now, I think, we've completed 1 year of it. Next year will be another big year. But I think the village will benefit a lot from that. The other thing that Ray did, I think, helped us focus on was pedestrian safety. I think, and not just on the western side of the village. I think Ray has at all times, be it in the street committee or the council meeting, really tried to stress what can we do to increase pedestrian safety in the village, and that has really helped us out a lot. He's also served, in addition to the streets committee, he served on the Public Buildings and Parks Committee, the Public Outreach Committee, the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee, and the Stormwater Advisory Board. So, Ray, you've been great to work with, and I've enjoyed serving the entire 10 years with you, so thank you very much. Councilwoman Conway. Councilwoman Conway has served 13 years on council. I tried to go back and determine where that ranks in the history of Amberley Village. It is up there very high. I think in recent times, there's only one person that has served longer, and that was Councilwoman Conway. But I think early on in the history of the village, there were some people that basically served longer, but she has really stepped forward to serve the community. She served 2 different periods. I think initially it was about a 5-year period, and then secondly, she served this past 8 years. I think over the last few years, Peg has dealt with some very tough issues. I think some people would immediately gravitate to the dog issue at Amberley Green. But I actually think the tougher issue, and one that we are really benefiting from right now, that her leadership was so fundamental on, was the ambulance and emergency response. She chairs the police and fire committee. That was a very tough decision that we had to make when we moved away from Little Miami / Gulf Manor and Deer Park and went with Redding. Peg really led us through in a very thoughtful way that whole process. And it was many series of meetings, but it was Peg's leadership that I think led us to a great place, and we are seeing the benefit of that today. She has, in addition to chairing the Police and Fire Committee and the Public Buildings and Park Committee, she has served on finance. And I have to say, when I asked Peg to serve on finance, she was reluctant. I would say that is putting it mildly. But I think she has enjoyed her time on finance. She's also served on compensation and benefits, public outreach, and on the Joint Economic Development Zone Committee that we have with Sycamore Township. And then the other thing that I have to say is that for the past 8 years as the mayor, Peg has been my neighbor, and she is not shy about pointing out where I'm messing up. I never got kicked, but I did get no past and so forth. But it was always, in a very good way, and she pointed out the right things. So I really have enjoyed serving with you, Peg. Okay, Councilwoman Kamine.
Okay. Scott scared me that we were doing speeches, so I did write some things down, and I will. And I do love a microphone, so I will take the opportunity here, but I promise I'll be short. So I'll just say, first of all, thank you, Tom. That was so beautiful and nice, and I really appreciate it. But very simply, it's just been a true honor to serve my community. Service to Amberley has been in my blood for as long as I can remember. I think probably right around this spot, maybe over there, when I was really little, I remember in the old building being sitting on Santa's lap at the old Christmas parties back in the day. But I just have fond and vivid memories as a child sitting in our kitchen and the police coming to deliver the packets for Planning Commission and then later for council meetings before the days of email for my dad, who served this community for over 20 years and saw it through some hard times. I've been so fortunate to follow in these footsteps, but also incredibly fortunate because the times have really been light. I mean, my gosh, I was writing down those numbers so that Scott, you said in the finance report, and it's just incredible. Our finances are strong, our property values are up, our precious green space has been an absolute lifesaver during the pandemic. Our prospects for economic development are looking up, and life is just good here. And while my term has been shorter than my dad's or Peg's or Ray's, and from the outside, it may not always seem like so much has changed. I'm really proud of all the work that we've done, not just coasting on that good, but actively planning for a strong future. And I wrote down a whole bunch of things like we've been working on succession planning, investing in the infrastructure through the streets program, welcomed 2 new neighbors on the north side, passed another police levy renewal, ensured our community beauty and character through updates to our property maintenance code, codified our commitment to green space at the Amberley Green zoning and recorded plans for pedestrian safety and connectivity, created new committees to engage our residents on the Human Rights Commission and the Health and Wellness Committee, addressed our very emotional issue that Tom mentioned of dogs at the Green, improved our communications with our residents, embraced our growth as a community for young families, and so much more. It's been such a busy 6 years with so much setting us up for a successful next 20. And in addition to the legislative work, I'm really proud of being able to have been a voice for the younger generation. I will now pass that torch to Ben. And really getting involved during this period with our neighbors through some unique advocacy on the Reading Road Corridor and the Duke Pipeline Project. I'm proud of the opportunity to have had a hard-fought election a couple of years ago, and just the once-in-a-lifetime experience of going and knocking on every door in your neighborhood and meeting all of your neighbors and sharing the collective dreams we have for ways to make our community a better place. And as Tom alluded to, I said I do hope to continue to work from not the dais to work on some of those things. And mostly, I'll just finish with, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to this council who actually, the reason I'm here, or this is the council who appointed me to this role, and has taught me so much. I'm so grateful to Scott and the chief and the police department and just the entire administration has been such amazing partners. It's been so fun working with you, my family for their support, and especially my dad who modeled this service for me, and to just the residents who elected me and believed in what we can all do when local government works and we come together for our community. So thank you again, and just I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Councilman Warren?
Thank you. You know, and over the years, when we've had some contentious issues on council, I would come with a prepared statement and read it to council. Tonight, I don't have any prepared statement, so I guess everyone should have some relief with that. I just wanted to comment. I've been on council 10 years, and I consider it a remarkable privilege and honor to have been on council. I think people who serve on council are really incredible individuals. When we came on council 10 years ago, virtually all of us, with the exception of Ed Attenbach at the time, was new. And we had to get to know each other, and we had to get to know how to work with each other, know our strengths, and build on those strengths. Sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was difficult. But it was really, I think we've been remarkable over the last 10 years in terms of what's been accomplished. I'd like to thank the employees of the village for their incredible dedication to make this village work. You know, we might be up here on the dais, but, you know, the village employees are the ones that really make the village work. I wanted to highlight just a couple things. One of the highlights of my tenure was the 75th anniversary, where all of us, I think, took some leadership position in that celebration. And it really was a remarkable event where we all got together, we all had a purpose, we all had this vision of what we wanted this celebration to be, and it was such a beautiful, beautiful day. And I certainly have fond memories of that. I'd like to thank, and I'd also like to thank some of the council members in terms of what they have contributed to the village. Just to highlight a few things. When I came on council, one of the things I learned was that we had a health insurance issue. And one of the council members really came up with a remarkable idea in terms of how to possibly get out of the mess. And we've succeeded in terms of generally controlling, you know, our healthcare costs. Council members have been involved in coming up with ideas with Human Rights Commission. Didn't come out of the blue, right? It came kind of came from council. The issues you mentioned about pedestrian safety. Obviously, it was a concern of residents, but there were folks on council that really pushed to try and make that happen, to make this place a better and safer place for all of us. So in that, I'd just like to thank all the residents for your trust and support over the years. And I'm still in the village, and I've certainly offered, you know, if you need me for whatever, for anything, just, you know how to reach me. So thanks so much, all of you.
Councilwoman Conway.
Thank you. I would echo many of the things that have been said. I would like to express a lot of gratitude. I feel really privileged to have been able to serve in this position. It's been really enjoyable and really rewarding. And I appreciate that that Tom's remarks expression about disagreement, because as I've been reflecting on my time on council, I find that I look fondly on the times of profound disagreement, and I think that they ultimately produce good results. I think that around like the dog ordinance, most notably, of course, but even with the Amberley Green and the EMS, I'm glad you mentioned the EMS too, because that looms high in my recollection of things that I have worked on here. I want to reflect on how well our government is run here in Amberley. I think we have a lot to be proud of and a lot to be grateful for. I learned a lot in working on the pipeline issue, being exposed to other municipalities and meeting with other citizens from other communities and witnessing other elected officials. And every time I felt like, well, we don't do that. We do it better than that, or our committees can handle that, or something. It just always, and it was true. And other people who were exposed to our village through that process would say things to me. Wow, you guys have a really great village. Yeah. So I want to acknowledge a couple of people. I want to acknowledge with thanks Mayor Chuck Kamine, who appointed me to this position in 2006 to fill an unexpired vacancy. And I was probably more shocked at his phone call than I was at Tom's invitation to join the Finance Committee. I don't know. I don't know that I would have ever run for village council if he had not invited me. So that was real. I remain always, I think of that always. I would like to thank the mayor, Muething, for appointing me to the Finance Committee. I don't recall being that shocked, but I was surprised. I guess I was very surprised, and I think that I would like to think that I have contributed from the standpoint of a person who is not a financial specialist, who is a writer and a communicator, and I've learned a lot, and it's been fun. It's been a very great exchange. I'm very surprised to say that that's been one of my most fun committee assignments. I would also like to acknowledge Scot and thank him for his years of service in the village. It was a great privilege to be part of the council that appointed him. And I've told this story before, but I think it's worth repeating, that after we interviewed him for the interim position, I looked at my colleagues and said, should we just offer him the job? It took 6 more months, but we did, and thank goodness. I also want to acknowledge Chief Wallace for his support through the work of working on the police levies 2 different times. And I would also like to acknowledge my husband, who knocked on a lot of doors with me and worked at the polls every time. So thank you to everyone. It's been a really great run, and I feel really so hopeful and so enthusiastic for the future with the new members and the future of the village. Thank you.
Well, thanks to you 3 for your service, and it really has been great serving with you also. We'll now move on to committee reports, and first is the Finance Committee, and as chair of the Finance Committee, before you this evening is Ordinance 2021-12, amending appropriations for fiscal 2021. And obviously for residents that were here for the recognition, don't feel you need to stay. If you would like to leave, you're more than welcome to leave. The reason we have to amend appropriations, we're asking for $100,000 increase of appropriations in the general fund. This is due to increased tax refunds, which is basically a bit of an unknown as they enter into the year, but we've had some increase in that. And then there were 2 items which we mentioned earlier this year. I think they came up in January or February. We installed additional license plate readers, and we needed to replace the records management system in our police department. Both of those accelerated into 2021. Those are not items, we would have incurred those expenses in a later time. So we need to increase the general fund by $100,000. In addition, in agency funds, where basically the funds come in and they go out, and that specifically is the Kenwood Jeds, the Mayor's Court Fund, the Police Levy Fund, and the Police Disability and Pension Fund. we've had increased revenues into those funds. So with those increased revenues, because they are agency funds, what comes in needs to go out. So we need to increase the appropriations in those funds. And in the case of the Employees Health Insurance Fund, which again is basically an agency fund, we've had increased collections from employees because of changes that they've made in their health insurance and some new employees on that. So I hereby move that we approve ordinance 2021-12, amending the appropriations for fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2021-12, amending appropriations for fiscal year 2021. Any questions? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance 2021-12. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardock. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ben Hunt.
Yes.
Elida Kamine.
Yes.
Tom Muething.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, also before you this evening is resolution 2021-31, which is a resolution where we are requesting information from the county auditor. The Finance Committee at its September meeting met and basically was reviewing the way forward with respect to the police levy fund, or the police levy. And what the Finance Committee determined is that there is an ongoing need for the police levy funds. It is, as shown in your package, it is a declining need. The general fund is increasingly taking on a greater percentage of the total police expenditures. When the police levy first started in 2013, the police levy was picked up 64% of the police department expenditures, and the general fund is 36%. That has now basically flip-flopped, and the general fund is now picking up 62% in 2021 from 38%. And we forecast that to continue to decline. And basically what the general fund is picking up all inflation as well as the increases in expenditures. What the Finance Committee is recommended is that we do a renewal of the police levy rather than a replacement. And the big benefit to residents of a renewal is that the property values will continue to be the 2013 property values, not the increased property values. So it's an 8 mil levy, but it's still levied on the old property value. So yes, the village doesn't get as much money, but the residents pay less, and not only do they pay less, but they continue to get the benefit of things like the state picking up a portion with the, what's it called, Scott? The rollback. And so if you would do a replacement at 8 mils, we would lose that rollback, but by doing a renewal at 8 mils, we keep that rollback, and residents get the benefit of that and also the benefit from not having to pay at the increased property values. So the Finance Committee was very comfortable at continuing to do it at that level. And also the Finance Committee recommended that we put this on the ballot at the primary next May. In order to do that, the first step is to request information from the county auditor, which basically is what this resolution does. We basically are requesting the county auditor to tell us how much will come in because of this 8 mil levy. If we approve this resolution this evening, the county auditor will get back to us in a few weeks. So we can then, the next step will be that we make a motion as council to put it on the ballot, and that would be a request again to place that on the ballot, but we need that information first. So the expectation would be that council at either the December or the January meeting would make that motion to put that on the ballot. So I hereby move that we approve resolution 2021-31 requesting information from the county auditor.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2021-31. Are there any questions? Councilman Warren?
Thank you. Just some clarification. So with this renewal, the residents are not paying less money. They're paying the same amount of money they have been paying over the last few years.
That's correct.
Right? Okay. So just
Well, they're paying less than they did from the initially, because we started out at 10 mil.
Oh, sure, but I'm just talking about
For
since.
the last 5
since
years,
the
we've
last
been at 8
renewal.
mil, so they will continue to pay the same
Right,
amount.
and assuming this passes, that collection will remain the same.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not going down, it's just keeping it flat, okay? And the other question I have is, so if we were to use a replacement format, the replacement format would be based on the current property values, right?
Correct.
And so whatever we would set, whatever millage we would set would be based on how much funds the village needs. So for example, if the current millage is 8, okay, and if we went to the replacement, in order to get that same amount of money, the millage may be less, okay? So I just wanted to be clear in terms of how we see this. Our objective is to raise the same amount of money. Going the renewal route keeps the millage at the same amount. If we went the replacement route, we would just use a lower millage to achieve the same amount of funds raised.
But then residents lose the rollback. So they end
I
up
see.
paying more because the state would not kick in their portion. Because the state
Okay.
changed the law back in
Okay.
2013 that basically says if you do a replacement, you
Okay.
lose that.
All right. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, as a non-financial person, I very much appreciate your explanation and the charts that are in our packet. Thank you, Scott, for including that. And Ray, even I appreciate your counter, why don't we do it another way? I, as someone who is not, an expert on levies and renewals and replacements, and I very much appreciate it. And as the chair of the Public Outreach Committee, whatever we decide to do, I think this is all very necessary information for our residents to be explained in exactly that manner with the chart that we were given and how our village financial situation has improved over the years and how we are taking on more of that financial burden from the general fund ourselves. I think that is all information that our residents will very much want and need to have before, if we pass this and we end up, going this route before it goes to the voters. Because for me, sitting here, it was very clear, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, it has been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2021-31. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Be it noted that the resolution passes unanimously. And that concludes the report from the Finance Committee. We'll now move to the Streets, Public Utilities, and Sewers Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Streets, Public Utilities and Sewer Committee met on November 2nd, just a few days ago, and we discussed two areas, one of which is before you to vote on, and I'll start with that, and that is the proposed CT consultant fee increase. As the description of the resolution before you states that the village hired CT Consultants, which is formerly CDS and Associates, as a village engineer in the early to mid-1980s. They provided the village with professional engineering and a broad range of services such as stormwater infrastructure and street improvements, architecture, structural, acquiring grant funding, in addition to general public works engineering. Other comprehensive engineering includes site plan review, capital improvement planning, traffic studies and signal design, subdivision regulation and review, and right-of-way acquisitions. I'd just like to add a little bit to this, and that is basically every time we have a street project or a building project that has to be assessed based on simply what is the value of this project, we have to consult with CT Engineering, because none of us have that expertise to really carefully assess whether the bids are fair and reasonable. In fact, being on the Streets Committee, I've seen there have been several occasions where we've had to reject basically bids because they were much higher than we expected. And so we deferred, whatever this project was to a later time. So the engineering services are really critical to the function of the village. I'd like to add one other thing. I know Mr. Muething mentioned this earlier. We're embarking on an 8-year streets program. And I'd like to highlight that CT Engineering was really pivotal in terms of helping us achieve the type of financing that we're going to need for this massive streets program. And obviously, CT Engineering worked very closely with the village manager to make sure this could happen. So the engineering services, I just wanted to highlight again, are really critical to the functioning of this village. They've proposed, in general, a 3% increase in their service rates, that is what they charge to us, their hourly rates, over the next year. And over the last 3 years, the rates have been pretty similar. So from 2019 to 20, it was approximately a 3% increase. From 2020 to 2021, it was 2.6%. And this year, it's about 3% again. So the committee voted to bring this resolution to council for approval, and that resolution is 2021-32, adopting the proposal of CT Consultants to amend its schedule of fees for 2022.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2021-32, approving and adopting the revised fee schedule for CT Consultants. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, if not, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2021-32. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Be it noted that that resolution passes unanimous.
The next item I'd like to talk about, and this is just for information, Mr. Tweehoos from CT Consultants provided us an update with the street rebuild project on Farmcrest. Recall, this is the first of the multi-year plan to improve the worst streets in the village. As noted previously, the cost of this project, including design, will be about $1.6 million. About 75% of the design has been completed. Mr. Tweehoos noted that the construction is intended to limit disturbances to driveway aprons. That is, as the construction is going on, hopefully your driveway will not be affected at all. One recent design change was related to replacing the east side curbs along Kincaid near Farmcrest and extend stormwater collection to Farmcrest. In this way, excess water collection and associated potential winter hazards will be minimized or eliminated in the future. Another consideration for this project has been to reduce traffic hazards and improve pedestrian safety. It's been noted that motorists are using Farmcrest as a shortcut and speed through the area. To calm, I guess that's the engineering term, to calm or control traffic, Mr. Tweehoos proposed the creation of medians at two junctions, one along South Farmcrest, east of North Farmcrest, and the other at North Farmcrest, which is north of Kincaid. An alternative might be the placement of thermoplastic rumble strips at these locations. Mr. Lahrmer is planning to update the residents of the upcoming street project and will include these proposals. Mr. Twee has also alerted us that we can expect an increase in the cost of the street program, as so many other types of projects, not just locally, but across the country, has seen an increase. I'd just like to close. I've been chair of the Streets Committee now, I guess, for about 6 years or so, and I'd really like to thank several people that have really helped me and helped this committee function. I'd like to thank the village manager, basically helps the chair look good by preparing all the documents in a timely fashion. I'd like to thank Wes Brown and Tony Chesney and his crew for always providing us with the appropriate information to make the right decisions. Tony has an incredible way of finding less expensive capital costs. You know, some of the equipment that we purchase is, it's not small pocket change. And so he has this canny ability to really come up with ways to save the village money. I'd also like to thank Chief Wallace. Some of the work we did had to do with pedestrian safety, and Chief Wallace was always on top of it and really helped enable things to happen. So with that, I'd like to conclude my final report to council on the Streets Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the Police and Fire Committee.
Thank you. The committee met on November 1st, and we had a presentation from Commander Tom Fallon, who heads the countywide heroin task force. You may recall that this is a project that was formed by the Hamilton County Police Chiefs Association in 2015, and it serves, multi-jurisdictions. And in 2017, we agreed for that position to be housed here in Amberley. We don't fund the position, but we just provide kind of the infrastructure for the position administratively and there's a few other ways. And so this is really the first time we've heard from Commander Fallon about his work. The work that he oversees kind of has two areas of focus. The first is an enforcement aspect where they're investigating overdoses to target the source dealer. And they're using a very community-oriented approach where the people wear street clothes. They're not trying to intimidate. They don't want to intimidate witnesses. They want to really find out what's going on in order to get to the source of the heroin. Then the other aspect is the quick response team, which is a law enforcement-led community outreach following up on overdoses, literally knocking on doors. That seems to be a theme tonight. Knocking on doors, following up with individuals to try to get them into treatment of some kind. This is an innovative approach that has been pioneered here in Hamilton County and has been replicated elsewhere in the country. He regularly speaks regionally and nationally. He shared data with us showing the team's impact. They have an increasing number of overdose deaths that they have investigated over the past 4 years, and an increasing number of people that have been referred to treatment, and a decline in overdose deaths over the past 4 years, which is counter to national trends. In the last 2 years, they've had a significant increase in grant funding to expand their work throughout the entire county, and he now has a staff of 8 that includes social workers and peer navigators, as well as an administrative assistant. We also heard how this kind of interaction benefits our police agency. Members of Amberley Police do serve in tasks for a period of time, either in investigations or on the quick response team, gaining new experience and adding to what they can offer here in Amberley. Commander Fallon was very complimentary. I'm just very satisfied with his work and very grateful to Amberley, and the committee really felt like we got a good view of what he's doing, and that affirmed that it's just really a positive thing for Amberley to be involved in, raises our profile in the region, and just contributing to the community in a way that we can. That's really it's not costing us money. We're just providing some space and services. So that concludes my report.
Are there any questions? Okay. We'll now move on to the Compensation and Benefits Committee.
Thank you. I don't know if this was on purpose that all three of us got to go again, but The Comp and Benefits Committee met on November 3rd, and you alluded to it earlier. Sometimes these meetings are challenging, but this is all good news today, and it's fun to be able to end here on a high note. And so our meeting was our annual meeting that we have about holiday gift cards for employees. Certainly, just a small token of our appreciation around the holidays to thank our employees for their incredibly hard work. And this has been a successful program over the last many, many years, certainly precedes me in this role. But we have not actually had an increase in the amount that we have been able to give our employees for it's 9 years now. So we are thrilled, I'm thrilled to be able to recommend today to council that we make empower the manager to increase the holiday gift card program this year to $300 per employee. We have about 35 employees, give or take. Part-time employees get a prorated amount, so it's $2,000 ish, give or take, kind of additional cost overall, but a $300 gift card for the employees. So that I'm moving, that I make a motion that we recommend the holiday gift card program for employees at $300.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we authorize the village manager to implement the holiday gift card program at a level of $300. Are there any questions? Not, it has been moved and seconded that we authorize the village manager to implement the holiday gift program at a level of $300. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Being noted that that resolution passed unanimously.
So I'll take the quick point of privilege moment too. Again, it's been a pleasure to chair this committee, and I think we have a lot of things that we do every year. It's been really great. The succession planning work is really exciting here, and just want to thank Scott. But also, of course, this is where we get to interact with all of our employees, and as both Ray and Peg have mentioned, it's just we would be nothing without our incredible employees, and I'm just so grateful for having the opportunity to serve on this committee and work with everybody, and even on the hard days when it's challenging. It's been such a pleasure, and so just wanted to say thank you again. That concludes my report.
Okay, are there any questions? If not, we'll move on to the investment committee, and I chair the investment committee. The investment committee had its annual meeting with PNC, which is our financial advisor for our investments. When we met in October, it was, I don't think it was surprising at all, but in the presentation, it was, the amount of change in the financial markets, and specifically that affects our investment of our excess funds. The changes over the past year have been very dramatic. And in fact, as we were sitting there that day, the spread between the interest rates in the like the one-year market versus the five-year market had very much the spread grew over the past few days. And so the committee at that point, we can invest in our CDs and our bonds up to a maximum of 5 years for that term, and we didn't see the need for it, so we authorized it to go out to up to 5 years. But again, as things change, I read in the Wall Street today that spread has again collapsed. But the one thing the committee said, what we do when we have one of our CDs roll over, we look for what the most attractive place to put that in as far as the CD. And the interest rates, obviously, as we all know, are not very attractive right now. But we look for the most attractive place. The committee concluded that given what we saw as far as changes over the past year, that meeting once a year probably was not enough. And so the committee recommended that we meet at least twice a year and keep an close eye on the market, and we may need to meet more often We do, as a village, across all of our funds, not just the general fund, but obviously the street fund has money. We currently have investments of $8.5 million. That is done intentionally on a ladder basis, which basically means that we have maturities on an ongoing basis. Currently, the furthest we go out is 3 years, but as I said, we are looking at the possibility, if interest rates are attractive, to possibly go out as long as 5 years. But, you know, I think the village manager and our finance manager and our financial advisors are doing a great job at identifying those opportunities. And I think, you know, the investment committee concluded that, you know, yes, we would like interest rates to be a little higher, but they're doing about as good as they possibly could do. And as I said, we are going to meet more often. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Tom, I have a question. So, and maybe Scott can address this as well. So when we have a CD that's expiring or we want to reinvest in something, does Scott need the authorization from the committee to do that reinvestment?
No.
Okay. So can the committee decide on, or can the committee entertain when there's an appropriate spread, an attractive spread in interest rates, that we try and move ahead and accelerate something like that without having to meet?
We did do that. The committee basically gave that guidance to. Now, I would say that in addition, the finance committee, which meets on a monthly basis, reviews our investments every month and looks at the maturities and what those have been invested in as far as the maturing security. Are there any other questions? Okay, we'll now move on to the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. First item I wanted to mention is in regards to our street program. So we've made significant progress. Barrett Paving was our contractor this year, and we certainly did have a few snafus, and you probably experienced that with the traffic. But when you're resurfacing section road, a significant portion of section road, you're going to have traffic delays. But the good part of that is we learned a few things. There were a couple things we will do differently in the future with the street program. But I just want to let you know that all the surface course is down. They should have on Friday. I did not witness this, but I've been told that they put down it's a pavement rejuvenator. So it's something that they sprinkle on the pavement that extends the life of it. It has to be done within a certain period of time after the new pavement has been put down. So that's been completed. What is yet to be done would be the painting on the street. So you've noticed that most significantly on section road. So it's when you're driving on it on dark, you got to watch those edge lines because there are no edge lines along there. But those will be put on starting sometime this week, most likely if the weather holds out. That will occur, and that'll be what's referred to as thermo marking. So it's a plastic paint that is sprayed on, and therefore you do not have to freshen it up every year like we do some of the other areas of street painting. But we've concluded Winding Way, Esther, Fair Acres Drive, and Section Road, and pleased that the project is nearing its completion. Second thing I wanted to mention is in regards to our leaf collection. Leaf collection started on the 18th of October, and the collection has actually been light this year, and that's not unusual. Sometimes you have a heavy fall of leaves, and you start out heavy. This year was not one of those, but we continue to pick up leaves, and just want to remind residents to continue to rake the leaves out to the street. It doesn't matter when we're coming, just keep raking the leaves out to the street, because on days where we have a light load, we can make it through the entire village in one day. On those days, and we're going to be experiencing those soon, we won't make it through one subdivision in an entire day. That's how significant the leaf fall is here in the village. Just encourage residents that We will take care of their leaves. We'll be picking them up through the, near the end of December. And we will eventually start using the black and white signs that tip residents off as to what day we think, or what week and day we think we will be on their particular street. So that is an ongoing problem, or an ongoing program that we provide. And I just want to mention that for brush collection, you know, the brush collection is sort of given a back seat during leaf collection. We still pick up brush, but we do it as we're able to. So the priority is really for leaf collection. And if we have extra time, then we will take care of the brush collection. So we refer to that as the brush light program. So we'll get to brush when we're able to. The third item I wanted to mention was I wanted to thank Carolyn Wallace. Carolyn is our administrative assistant here in the office. She's the friendly voice that you hear when you call the village. And Carolyn does an amazing job for us, and she was very willing to step in for Tammy tonight to take the minutes for the meeting. So very appreciative that she was willing to do that. And my last comment is I just wanted to thank Councilmember Kamine, Councilmember Warren, and Councilmember Conway. I have unique relationships with all three of these individuals, and I certainly have a heart of gratitude for what they have done for me this past decade. And I'm very appreciative to have worked with these three individuals, and just want to thank them for their service, because I know it's not an easy job to be a council member. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions for the manager?
This is not a question, but I noticed in your report, you didn't comment on it, but on National Drug Take-Back Day was October 23rd. But it's just a reminder that that we take unexpired and unused drugs all year long, not just on Drug Take-Back Day, which it's a good reminder for myself, and I hope that it's a just reminder for anybody else who may not know that you can bring them back anytime.
That's a good plug for the program, because our police department is open 24 hours a day. Any resident can come here and drop off unwanted drugs, and we will dispose of them properly. Thank you, Vice Mayor Wolf.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Lieutenant Blum?
The police department has a very brief report this month. In addition to our normal activities, we had a little bit of a unique activity this past month, whereas Amberley Green building was broken into, which has happened in the past. It's been some time since that happened, but we did arrest 5 individuals for breaking into the building. They were caught inside the building, and for whatever reason, they were removing old newspapers, magazines, aprons, weird things. But anyway, we were able to apprehend all 5 of them. The maintenance department was able to resecure the building with some boarding it back up with some plywood and other items. So in addition to that, some of the new signage that was placed around Amberley Green for the dogs' leash laws was damaged, stolen. That had occurred on a number of occurrences, and we were able to arrest an individual for that as well as citing him for having 2 dogs at large when he wasn't supposed to off the leash. That was not a resident, so just filling in a little bit of information about that. As far as the police department goes, some of the interactions we've had with neighboring residents that their property may have butt up to Amberley Green. In the past, routinely along Burning Tree and sometimes even onto Ridge Road and Galbraith Road, and then the front yards on either side, occasionally dogs would leave the Amberley Green property, be in people's yards, and then eventually get called back by their owner. Some of the feedback we recently got is that this has been reduced significantly, which is a positive for the residents that their property does abut against the Amberley Green property. So that concludes the police report for.
Councilwoman Conway?
I just want to make sure everybody was clear that the signs that were damaged were the yard sign type signs that are out in the property, not the trailhead kiosk was not harmed.
Right, the new wood structure, that's still in place. No damage has been done to that, so that's a positive. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. With respect to the mayor's report, I think I've I've already talked a fair amount this evening. The one thing I want to mention, this evening, we rightfully recognized our 3 outgoing council members, but the new council will, in accordance with our charter, the new council convenes on December 1st. In accordance with that, the new council will be sworn in on December 1st at 5:30. And we're still working out some details as far as who will be doing the swearing in, but the new council will convene on December 1st. That swearing in will just be the swearing in that evening, and then the first regularly scheduled council meeting will be the first council meeting in December. And that concludes my mayor's report. Any questions? Any new business?
Thank you, Mayor. This is just, what we do here at council. This is an example of how it impacts the rest of the community, or maybe other businesses or in the community. And we had a resolution last month regarding Indigenous Peoples Day and a land acknowledgement, and that was communicated to the Cincinnati Board of Rabbis, and the rabbi at Adath Israel congregation, Rabbi Smolkin, found out about it, and at the most recent board meeting of Adath Israel, the Board of Adath Israel passed a resolution in recognition of Indigenous peoples and a land acknowledgement as well. So what we do here does have an impact, gets noticed in the community, and it's exciting when it's something good like that.
Any other new business? If not, I would like to make a motion that we move to adjourn into executive session to discuss employment and compensation of public employees per Ohio Revised Code, Section 121-22.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we adjourn into executive session. Please call the roll.
Richard Bardock. Yes. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ben Hunt.
Yes.
Elida Kamine.
Yes.
Tom Muething.
Yes?
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
And for those in attendance at this point, I'll explain real quick. We're going to go into executive session. We'll come back into general session, but we're just going to be adjourning the meeting. There will be no further actions taken. We will report, to the extent we take any action. We can't take any action in an executive committee. This is the discussion issue. Any action that would be taken would be action taken in a general session, but that would not be when we come back in. So you can rest assured we're not going to be doing any business without it being in the public eye. So thank you very much for this evening.